This is Rafique with Plain to Not Buried, and I'm here with a very special guest, the lovely Faith Jessie. Welcome aboard.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. What's up, Planted Not Buried? We are here in the Newsday studios in Melville, New York, and I just finished up a show, which is why I have my stuff still on. But I had to come in for you, my man. What's going on?
Nothing much. Want to talk about like what inspired you to become a journalist and the journey it took you to get there.
What inspired me? I've always really been into creating video, to be honest with you. I've loved, like, ever since I was a kid. I remember for Christmas, I asked my mom for a handheld Sony mini DV tape camcorder. The kids, they're like, what's a tape? Yeah, we used to have to put tapes and close it up and shoot, press record, rewind the tape if you wanted to put more video on there. And I remember all of my class projects, like in middle school, they would say it's a group project. A lot of people would be doing slideshows, and I'd be like, hey, can I make a video for this? So video creation was number one, like my love. And then I realized, oh my gosh, there is this whole career field called journalism, broadcast journalism, where I could take my love for creating video and create videos that actually impact folks' lives. I also loved writing. As we know in journalism, writing is a major thing, right? If not the thing to do. And the more I learned about and started watching the news and looking at reading a lot of the newspapers, I realized that, wow, people are really out here changing lives. Like, people are really getting access to documents and lists or questioning people in power, really doing what they can to make the world a better place if they can, or making a little mark to make that world a better place. And I realized, wow, if one person can do that with this so-called journalism, I really want to be a part of that. And yeah, that's what sparked my interest. And I applied to J school, got in, and then I started learning the nitty gritty about what it takes to be a journalist.
Want to talk about the schools you went to where your journalism career really kicked off?
Yeah, so I was accepted to the Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism that is at the University of Southern California. Go Trojans, baby, in Los Angeles. And it was a phenomenal experience. They have a student news channel called ATVN, and you can sign up. I started off as an assignment at the assignment desk. Excuse me, I started off rewinding tapes because we were still shooting on tapes for a couple of years before they transitioned to SD cards. And then got moved up to the assignment desk. Then I eventually made my way as a MMJ reporter. And it was fascinating. We were in Los Angeles out there covering stories with the professional journalists that were working at ABC, NBC, CBS, all the networks. And here I was with my little one-man band camera covering the same stories. We were USC journalists, and we were respected out there. And it was a phenomenal experience. A lot of my friends that I met in school are doing big things right now. If you all were tuned in to the Planted Not Buried Zoom conversation last week, Elisa Hernandez, who works at NFL Network, I met her there. So it was an amazing experience. And sorry about, we have stuff going on in the studio here behind me, so ignore
Oh,
that.
good.
But yeah, what really piqued my interest in really doing this thing full time. And yeah, from there, when I was in Annenberg, I got involved with the National Association of Black Journalists. I interned at the office, and I was actually a founding member of the USC Association of Black Journalists at USC. And that network really helped to shape me to where I am today. So I do have to shout out NABJ, because I would not be here without everybody that I met through NABJ.
I did take part in the virtual NABJ convention the past 2 years.
Okay, okay.
I didn't get a chance to do it in person, but eventually that appearance is gonna come. So just be patient and take your time with that. And
Yeah, we're gonna be looking for you, sir. We're gonna be looking for you.
but don't worry, we can meet up in New York City somehow. But that's a conversation we get off the air. But
All right. All right.
what I can tell you is, you mentioned working for Campus Media and going out to cover events in Los Angeles. That's kind of similar to what I had to do. I mean, when I was a day of reporter for WV, working for the WV News Department, I mean, they literally sent me out there. I'm doing the same stories that journalists from ABC, News 12, and Fox were covering.
Yeah.
So it's just the credibility you get when you're gaining recognition for doing the work and making the connections.
Making those connections, a big part of journalism is sources, right? So anytime you go out to a story, the phone numbers of people that you meet, whether it be somebody who is picking up gum off the street to a high ranking US official, you keep those names and those numbers and you check in with them, because you never know, somebody that you met covering a story in college might be your biggest source, trusted source later in your career, and you want to keep those relationships. And so the more you go out, the more you cover. And especially as journalists, students, we were out there doing the big things. I go to award ceremonies now and you see all like student work, then you're like, oh my gosh, that's a student that's breaking these stories, that's scooping these stories. So students are just not professionals yet, but still are professionals. We just have the student umbrella over us when you're students. So you're still out there. And
Yeah.
it's important to do that. Get those reps in.
And again, I can kind of relate to that during my days at WV Public Radio at Fordham University. That's where I got my master's degree.
Okay, master's degree.
And I got my bachelor's from Long Island University.
Okay.
From Long Island University, where I was a writer for the school newspaper.
All right.
Where I cover some sports, where I cover some college sports, and sometimes I even go out there. I go out there and do coverage every now and then for the entertainment section.
Okay.
But it's mostly writing. I haven't really done enough on air stuff, so I was mostly a writer. So yeah, there's that.
Writing is so, like I said, the writing is the key. You can learn the on air stuff. You got to write. You got to learn how to write and be knowledgeable. We can teach you how to dress and put on makeup, but you got to know how to write.
Exactly. But why don't you talk about how your news and politics stories have made a positive impact in the community during your current days writing for Newsday?
For Newsday, yeah. So I'm on the video team with Newsday. I started in 2020, so right before the big election between Trump and Biden, or the big, election between Trump and Biden. And we started off hitting the ground with all things politics. Newsday, we focus on what's impacting folks on Long Island and in New York. And so we're focusing a lot on within the national realm of politics. We look at how is this impacting Long Islanders? And so I was starting off doing different stories. I remember one story I did was highlighting young folks this will be their first time voting the election, and what are some of those issues that mattered to them. A big one was student loans. I had some folks that were like, oh, I have so many student loans. Like, what are we going to do? If somebody can come in and wipe this clean or tackle a way to help me pay this down so I'm not stuck in debt, that's my thing. Some people it was healthcare. Other people it was help getting a job, the job market. And then, we covered different aspects. We spoke to local folks, because not only do you have your national elections, you have your down ballot races as well. People that are running for different federal offices, local offices, judges that are being elected, people that really, really make an impact right in your home. So we were focusing a lot on that as well. But of course, all eyes were on that presidential election between Trump and Biden. And so we spent a lot of time covering that. And since 2020, for the last 2 years, we covered a lot of COVID stories, because that was impacting us and still is impacting us. The vaccine rollout at the beginning of 2021, we were able to go into one of the hospitals here and really just get an up close look at what was going on. How were the healthcare workers getting the vaccines? What about people that weren't vaccinated? The slowdown, was there a slowdown or was there a speed up? Because at that point, it was another wave. You had the holidays, people were sick and tired of COVID, right? I want to go home and I want to see grandma. Unfortunately, that led to a spike in cases, and we didn't have a wide spread distribution of the vaccine yet, because it was just authorized for emergency use for healthcare workers, right? And since then, I could talk to you for 30 minutes about all the things that we've done for the last 2 years, but I won't subject you all to that. But it's been a lot, from politics to health. We've done some fun kind of things to do. I was on a surfboard. They got me on a surfboard. I didn't even think I could stand up. I did that. From sports and social justice, working with minority millennials. Shout out to Dan Lloyd and all the stuff they're doing. So yeah, a whole lot. We've been doing a whole lot here at Newsday TV.
Yeah. So Yeah, I could only imagine. I mean, being able to. I mean, I actually worked an election day during the time during the presidency. Well, not during the
Yeah.
presidency, but most mainly during like the mayor elections, and well, pretty much everybody that working in the committed political field. I mean, when you're doing coverage of these electees trying to run for president or the mayor of New York City or whatever stories whatever stories that you cover in the political departments, you're going to run into stuff like that. You probably got to sit and debate for 20 minutes hearing both Donald Trump and Joe Biden talk about why they deserve to be president, and Joe Biden ended up getting the victory because people can't stand Donald Trump. People can't.
Well, I can't say that. I can't say that. We got to be down the middle. But what I will say is that people are truly, I mean, you're going to see the political campaigns because we're coming into midterms in November, and it's a dog eat dog world. People are going to put the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly out there. But the voters, they want to see somebody who's going to address the issues and not just say, I'm going to do it, but what action have you shown? What actions in the past have you taken that prove that you want to do this? Or what actions have you done in the past that goes against what you're saying right now? How can I trust what you're doing right now? And I think as a journalist, especially in the political side of things, we have a moral responsibility to hold those who are in power accountable. So if the mayor or somebody does something wrong, we have to be in there asking those tough questions. Yes, we might have a great relationship. Maybe he'll call me to let him know what's going on. I'm not saying that I have, I do not have that relationship, but maybe one day. But even if I did, I would still, if he did something wrong, you know that I'm a journalist first. So I have to ask you those questions, and I'm going to be fair and balanced to you and to everyone else. A woman here, her name is Joy Brown. She is an amazing reporter. She is a columnist here. And she, at an award ceremony where she was getting a big award, she mentioned, she was like, one of the reasons why I'm able to get the story is because I keep it fair. If there is a major scandal going on, I'm going to write about that scandal, but I'm going to pick up the phone and call who that scandal is about first and say, hey, convince me why you didn't do this. Tell me your side of things. I want to know before I put this out here. And there are people that will call her and nobody else because they know that she's going to be fair and put everything out there, not put a little bit of the truth or something here to kind of spin it to please an audience. No, we're journalists. We put the facts out there. We stay down the middle. And it's not my job to tell you how to think. My job is to put it out there, and then you develop an opinion.
That's a pretty interesting statement. I'm not gonna lie to you. And what I can add on to is when you covering stories, like what made you think that it's a good story to cover based on who, what, where, when, and why?
That's a great question. That's a topic of newsworthiness. What is newsworthy? Because I work for a publication, that's a team decision. In the morning, there's usually a morning meeting around 9. There's usually another afternoon meeting around 4. And great minds come together and think just that. One thing that I know a lot of people are interested in, if I have a news story, how do I get it out there? I think this is important and needs to be covered. I say reach out to email, go on social media, reach out to a local reporter. You can email the newsroom directly, but you're more likely to get those pitches by actually sending it to the reporters or a producer who is working on that, works on the stories. The way that we decide what is newsworthy, once again, like I said, it's a team effort. I'll have a story pitch. I'm like, hey, I really, really want to do this. Is it impacting the community? How many people of the community will this impact? This is for me, for my publication, because we're Long Island focused. What is the Long Island tie? What is this going to matter to people who live on Long Island? If you're in a different newsroom, there might be different parameters that are discussed, right? But once again, the powers that be, everybody comes together, and then those assignments are made, and then we go on about the day, and then the next day it's a completely other day where there's a whole new round, another meeting where you kind of go one by one. Here's the pitches. Maybe we want to do that. Maybe we don't want to do that. And sometimes I'll pitch something and it'll go by the wayside. It doesn't get
That's
covered.
how it is sometimes.
That's just how it is sometimes. Exactly. And then I mean, I'm a journalist. I know how to shoot, write, and do everything. I can go and do it on my own if I can, put it together, say, here you go. And sometimes it'll get published. So it just depends on how much work you want to do for it.
Exactly. And even if you're not necessarily working for a publication, I'm doing the podcast, nothing but that sports talk where I cover stories all the time. Even when I'm not in the arena interviewing the players, I'm sometimes interviewing the players through the Zoom call for this basketball league called the WNBA, which is a sports league, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, WNBA, of course. We know. Come on, ladies. We love the WNBA, honey.
So yeah, I just ask questions based on current events, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
But to continue with the interview, like the whole time you've been working your way towards this journalism journey that you've been doing right now, like what have you always like? How do you always maintain being news appropriate in any journalism work that you do, in any journalism office that you're in?
When you say news appropriate, can you explain what do you mean by news appropriate?
Like being able to like articulate what you're saying on the air, like
Okay.
about certain news topics.
Okay. I think the question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how am I informed? How do I stay informed of everything that's going on and being able to put that out there or
And
maintain?
being news appropriate, like how to dress, like how
Oh, okay. Okay.
you're on
I
the
think,
when you're talking about these stories.
okay. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is it's word of mouth. Some of us have talent coaches that'll say, "Oh, this is a good color on you." Learn how to do your makeup. The news voice that you hear, a lot of people just kind of wing it. And I remember in 2016, I was trying to sound like Robin Roberts, and my news director was like, "Stop doing that. You sound silly. Like you're not Robin Roberts. Just talk like yourself." Um, and then, I mean, a really big part of it is staying informed. I mean, any journalist, they're going to be reading. We're reading the big publications, the New York Times, the Post, the local papers. We're watching. I watch news. I listen to podcasts. It's my roommates get annoyed with me because I always have my TV on loud and some news channel, and they're like, "All right, oh my God, can you close your door? Can you turn that down?" But that's the way that I stay informed because there's so much stuff going on. Twitter, also a really good way to stay informed. But reading, I get a lot of my news from the newspapers because I feel like newspaper reporters have the time and the beats and the knowledge to really go in and get the nitty-gritty finite details that sometimes broadcast reporters aren't afforded the opportunity to do because of the time constraint that we have to publish our stories. So yeah. And just articulate, being professional, that just kind of goes to any career that you're in. You want to be professional, you want to be your authentic self. But you want to make sure that, you're professional. Read the room. You know what I'm saying? If you're going into a room where it might be a different vibe, adjust accordingly to the vibe, but still be your authentic self. That's the best advice I guess I can give on that.
That's pretty nice. I mean, you broke it down everything. I was just getting ready to ask like what advice you have for any upcoming journalists that are still in college trying to get to get discover their own journalism path.
Yeah, read, man. I mean, and it sounds like annoying, like read, and especially the TikTok generation. Like I have had to set a time limit on my phone and turn it to grayscale so I stay off of TikTok. But read, read as much as you can. Books, news articles, just anything you like to read. Find something you like to read because you're going to be learning new vocabulary words. You're going to be learning how to, when you read a lot, you write better. You're going to learn how to write more. And when you're reading all of these news articles, if you notice something that you keep kind of diving into, like maybe you read one article on the big abortion issue that's happening right now, and you keep going down to different health stories. Maybe you have an interest in health, or maybe you have an interest in the Supreme Court. If you read about tech, maybe you found an interesting Facebook story, and then now you're going down the rabbit hole of what's happening with Meta and the Twitter Elon Musk deal, and what's happening with AI and robotics. Maybe you really like tech. Maybe you like finance. So as you read, you'll develop these interests. And it doesn't have to just be one interest, but what I will suggest is you want to be a mile deep on one thing. So pick something you really, really like and be an expert in it. If you like law and maybe you wanted to be a lawyer, but now you kind of want to go into law journalism, know everything there is to know about law. If you want to go into finance, know everything there is to know about finance, and then stay informed of everything else that's going on. But if you're going to be a political reporter, you need to know what's happening in Washington every single day, and that should be the bulk of your reading. So if CNN calls you up and say, "Hey, can you do a hit on this subject?" You're ready to go. You're informed. You know what's going on. Even as a student, you never like there are students that are live on air, and you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Twitter. You can establish a name for yourself right now as a student by just actively tweeting what's going on, reading, and just being active on those social media platforms. Another big thing I would say is to make sure that you are, like I was saying before, building those sources when you're out covering your student work for school. You can keep it in the cloud. I'm old school and I keep like a whole like notebook of phone numbers, but make sure you have a Rolodex, which I know that's a dated term, but a phone book of contacts, a contact list that you want to stay in touch with. And then get yourself enrolled, get involved with a student journalism chapter, whether it be the NABJ, Society of Professional Journalists, AAJA, NAHJ. I should say these acronyms. So National Association of Black Journalists, Society of Professional Journalists, National Association of Hispanic Journalists, AAJ, I believe is Asian American Association of Journalists. And find events, go to those events, shake hands, meet people, let them know, hey, I'm a student journalist and I'm really interested in covering this. And you'll be surprised by how many people want to help. And even if you're not in school and you want to get into journalism, go to those events, shake those hands, because that is really going to set you up, those
We
relationships.
appreciate that. That's how when I was doing the virtual version, I was able to get connections from people like ESPN,
Yes.
just to name a few. But yeah, thank you for your time, and I'm glad I got a chance to speak with you, Faith. And I have faith, if it isn't faith, that you're going to progress in this journalism industry.
Look, I receive it. Look, we reaching out, we pulling it in, we putting it in there. So I appreciate that, and I'm sending that right back to you, sir.
Appreciate the time.
All right, y'all. Thank you.